Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening po sa lahat. Saan man pong panig ng mundo kayo naroon. Welcome to our 146th episode of Stop COVID's webinar series brought to you by the University of the Philippines. Thank you for being part of our credible online community, and for those who have just discovered us for today, welcome at sana po marami po kayong matutunan in our very interesting webinar for today. Vaping, it's a colloquial term na para po sa tinatawag nating electronic nicotine delivery systems or ENDS. They come in cool and attractive forms meant to entice the youth to take up the habit of vaping. Vaping has been marketed as a less harmful form of smoking or as an aid for quitting, but neither of these are true. So ano po bang alam po natin tungkol dito? Ito pong mga gamit pong ito pong ENDS or electronic nicotine delivery systems, they contain varying amounts of nicotine and harmful emissions na harmful po sa mga gumagamit po nito, sa mga hindi po gumagamit pero exposed sa mga aerosols po nila secondhand, and some products claiming to be nicotine-free have been found to also contain nicotine. There are a number of harmful effects of nicotine consumption. Sa mga bata lang po, this can affect brain development and lead to learning and anxiety disorders. May mga pag-aaral din po that suggests that ENDS use, yung pong paggamit po nitong mga vape na tinatawag, can increase the risk of heart disease and lung disorders, and nicotine exposure in pregnant women can have similar consequences for the brain development ng fetus. I'm Dr. Raymond Francis Sarmiento, Director ng National Telehealth Center, National Institutes of Health, University of Philippines, Manila. Always a pleasure to be with all of you during our regular Friday, and always looking forward to our Fridays because I get to share hosting duties with our adjunct research faculty at National Telehealth Center, also internationally renowned public health communications expert, Dr. Susie Pineda Mercado. Dr. Susie.
Hi, good afternoon, Raymond. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. We'd like to welcome you all to the webinar. I'd like to welcome those who are watching on the playback as well. But we'll welcome those who are here with us on Zoom. Those of you who are watching on the UP System Facebook page, TVUP Facebook page, Stop COVID Deaths Facebook page, ang dami natin page, Raymond, no? And of course, all of those who are watching on TVUP, Signal TV Channel 101. So welcome to the webinar. This is going to be very exciting and very important for public health. And I hope you'll share this webinar with others who are not able to join us today, because we are going to tackle a very important public health problem that I think is becoming worse. In today's episode, we're going to talk about vaping, or the use of electronic nicotine device delivery systems, and what is the effect on non-smokers and bystanders. What is the side stream of vaping? Aside from this, nicotine delivery systems have also been linked to a number of physical injuries, including burns from explosions. You've seen some of these na, napuputukan sila sa mukha, no? Or malfunction when the products are not of the expected standards or are tampered with by users. So, Raymond, this is a topic that's very close to my heart. I've been working in tobacco control for the longest time, and really quite upset to see how the epidemic on tobacco has now shifted to vaping. And this is really a big health problem, not just in our country, but in many parts of the world. Okay, so we bring you only the best speakers. Our main speaker for today is Dr. Maricar Limpin, leading pulmonologist from the Philippine Heart Center and the immediate past president of the Philippine College of Physicians. She is globally known as a staunch anti-tobacco advocate, and she will be discussing how electronic cigarettes negatively impact on health and can cause harm. Our reactor is an advocate for tobacco control for more than 30 years. I've worked with him even during the time of Manong Johnny Flavier, working quietly in the background. He's in the field of advertising and marketing, but he's the founding member and president of the Framework Convention Alliance Philippines, or FCAP, and ASH Philippines. Currently, he's also managing director of brand ideas and president of Hub Creative. So he will be talking to us about the communication challenges when we're talking to young people about risk and harm. And I understand Dr. Ted Herbosa is with us. And hopefully he can stay and also share some of his thoughts on this. So hoping, Ted, you can stay and join our discussion. Our synthesis and closing remarks will be delivered by Dr. Stella Marie Jose, who is the PGH Head of the Office of Expanded Education and Training. So as you've seen in our opening billboard, we have now given COVID an acronym. So C standing for, of course, COVID-19. We keep on talking about that, right? But the O is other outbreaks, V, viruses, I, infections, D, disasters. Anyway, before we proceed, many of you are waiting for the latest news in health and medicine, and it's for this reason that we bring you the news update.
Okay, for our very first news update, an emergency room doctor. So, very timely since we have Dr. Ted Herbosa here. He has been using ChatGPT. Ito po yung generative pre-trained transformer po using large language models na artificial intelligence. They have been using it on a busy night, pero not to generate diagnosis but to explain to a worried family why the IV fluid therapy yung pong sa suero that they were requesting, the family was requesting, was exactly the wrong way to treat their 96-year-old mother's pulmonary edema and respiratory distress. He likened ChatGPT to a hangover intern who can compile a patient history, create written communication for patients and staff, and explain complicated medical information simply, with empathy and compassion. However, ang pagkakapareho po nila, yung pong ChatGPT na AI at yung hangover intern, their work still needs to be checked by a clear-eyed human expert or supervisor. So that is our first news update for today. Dr. Susie?
Yeah, Raymond, in our news here in the Philippines, the Department of Health has reported that 43% of the recorded deaths due to the coronavirus are unvaccinated. And this emphasizes the crucial role of vaccination in preventing fatalities from this particular infection. As of May 15, the Department of Health has logged 66,453 COVID-19 deaths and 4.1 million total cases nationwide since January 2020. The Department of Health has also said that there has been an increase in the daily average of COVID cases, showing a 28% increase from May 9 to 15. And now the national positivity rate is higher than it was last week. So that's our news for today. We'll be back with more news on the news update next week. Okay, and we're back. Back to our webinar topic, Raymond, and we always start by trying to find out what ordinary people think about our topic for today. So, Raymond, please go ahead.
That's
and
true. So for those who are joining us for the very first time, we have what we call the person on the street video. So POTS, that's the one wherein we ask questions to common folks on the street on what they know about our topic for today. To set our discussion into context, we ask several individuals po, no, the questions, may kilala po ba kayong nagvi-vape? Ano sa tingin ninyo ang epekto kung may nagvi-vape sa harap ninyo? Please watch this.
Yeah, marami. Parang all of my peers.
Opo, marami po akong kakilala na nagbe-vape.
Marami sa mga kasamahan ko sa industriya naming mga talents, marami.
Marami po akong kilalang nagbe-vape, especially in theater.
Personally, I don't mind that naman pag nagve-vape sila. I mean, it's for recreation din naman. But at the same time, people should be wary of vaping, especially kapag may kaharap silang bata.
Tingin ko, kasi asthmatic ako tingin ko mas lalong lumalala yung ika ko, natitrigger siya, especially kapag ka malapit. Kasi yung vapor nga, ayun, nakakapagpalala siya ng asthma.
Personally, hindi siya ganon ka-negative unlike sa sigarilyo.
Actually, and honestly, naiirita ako kasi mas masyadong mausok ang vape, di ba? Lalo na yung mga teenagers na ang lakas sumag-hit-hit.
Siguro kasi dahil sa amoy. I mean, dahil may parang iba't ibang flavor yung vape, hindi siya ganon nakakairitang amuyin. Unlike sa sigarilyo na minsan ang baho talaga.
Recently lang may nabasa ako sa Facebook tungkol sa effect ng vape. Marami din palang bad effects yan. Kaya para sa akin, hindi advisable ang vape.
It's best if people should vape na lang ng alam nila mismo na okay lang. May consent dun sa kasama nila.
Yeah, thank you so much, TVUP, for those interviews. You know, TVUP goes out of its way to look for people who are willing to speak and to give their opinions. And I think in this particular case, we're really seeing how vaping has become acceptable. Parang andyan na, maraming nagve-vape. Hindi malinaw yung messaging na masama, no? Masama to para sa kalusugan nyo. Anyway, but it's good to know what people are thinking so that we as frontliners, as health workers, will be in a better position to give advice and to clarify and to give the right information to people. Because there's a lot of fake news out there. Okay, Raymond, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Susie. Just a little bit of housekeeping for those who are asking. We have sent out all of the certificates, at least in our records po, no, for 145 episodes. So if you feel that you should have received, and we saw that there are those who have emailed recently, at least I think last week medyo maraming email. So we continue to check our records for those. But please keep in mind po that we will be only giving out if you have watched at least 50% of the webinar duration. Ito pong certificate of attendance. And please email us at stopcoviddeaths@up.edu.ph if you have any questions or comments. For today's webinar, we'll have a standard panel discussion format. After our main speakers presented, we'll hear from our reactor, which will be followed by our open forum na Q&A session. But before we delve into the webinar, we'll have our cute intro video for our fun quiz segment for today.
Anniversary yata yun, Cute pa rin.
This one.
Cute
Okay.
pa rin.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Kumusta na kayo lahat?
Hi, I'm Doc Susie, the mini Doc Susie.
And I'm Doc Radar, the mini Doc Raymond. Are you ready to have fun? Simply open your browser to www.slido.com and enter your code to participate. We will discuss your answers during the panel discussion later on in the program.
We will have it flashing on your screen in a bit, and we look forward to your answers. Masaya at madali lang ito. Join na!
Ayun pala.
Yan, mukhang, ano rin yan, mukhang mga fireworks din yan.
May
Raymond,
fireworks din pala doon. Okay, can we have on the screen our our two questions? This one in Slido, but also can we have it there we go in the Zoom. For those who are joining us outside of the Zoom, you can still participate in our fun quiz by opening up your web browsers and typing in slido.com, and when you are prompted, enter the code 6510096. That's 6510096 for you to be able to participate in our fun quiz segment. There are two questions. Madali lang po ang ating katanungan for this week. Question number 1, true or false lang po? Vaping is less harmful than cigarettes. Ito po ba ay totoo? Ito po ba ay hindi totoo? Marami po tayong kailangang malaman for today just based on the answers po na meron po tayo for today. We'd like to greet those who are joining us all the way from the Southern Philippines Medical Center in Davao City, Davao. From University of Northern Philippines in Vigan, Ilocos region, from the Lung Center of the Philippines in Quezon City, from Valladolid District Hospital, in Bacolod City, Western Visayas, from St. Louis University Sacred Heart Medical Center in Baguio City, in Baguio. So makita-kita po tayo ulit over the weekend sa Baguio. We'll be traveling there for a speaking engagement, but we'd also like to greet those who are joining us all the way from Cavite. Meron din po from UP, Los Baños, Laguna. Maraming salamat po. From regular sa Deca Homes, Loma de Gato, Marilao, Bulacan. Thank you, Dr. Joseph Tortona. University of Rizal System Health Services. Meron po tayo. Bulacan Medical Center, Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. Thank you so much. From Bataan, Bulacan Medical Center. Those who are joining us internationally, I will greet later on po. From RPHS from Dau in Pampanga. Maraming salamat po sa panonood. From all the way from MMG San Jose Occidental, Mindoro. Meron din po tayong mga taga-subaybay, taga-panood from Far Eastern University, NRMF po. Maraming salamat. Zamboanga City, may nanonood din po. Thank you so much. RPHS Annex 1 in Antipolo. Thank you. Maraming salamat po. For question number 2. Question number 2 reads, sabi ko po sa inyo, madali lang po. True or false ulit? Vaping is less addicting. Less addicting po yan sa paninigarilyo. Totoo po ba? We'd like to greet those who are joining us. Here in the Zoom, may from all the way from Algeria and from Phuoc City inIen Giang Province. Siya po ay taga Vinmec International Hospital in Vietnam, from Chonin Hospital in Taipei City in Taiwan, Lunichi Ali University of Blida 2 in Algeria, Blida, Algeria, and Al Meswak Dental Clinics in Taif City, Saudi Arabia, and the University of Hail in Hail, Saudi Arabia. We will not be closing our fun quiz segment po. We encourage everyone to answer po these types of questions as we move on to our webinar proper. Dr. Susie.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Actually, sabi mo, Raymond, madali pero palagay ko, hindi rin ganun kadali. Di ba? Parang nagdududa, there's doubt. And I think the purpose of this webinar is to give you information para hindi kayo magduda sa mga sagot na yan. So here we go. I know you're all excited to hear from our speaker. I've introduced her, Dr. Maricar B. Limpin. She is immediate past president of the Philippine College of Physicians and a leading pulmonologist, plus a staunch anti-tobacco advocate in our country. Maricar, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, go ahead, Maricar. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to first share my slides. Okay, so can everybody see my slides now?
Yes po, you're good, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
it's good.
Yeah, so I think the topic for today is quite I don't know, very interesting for me since I've been in this advocacy for so long. So now this is actually one of the I think the strongest fight that we are in right now as far as tobacco control is concerned. So I'd like to discuss really what is actually being spread about vaping, that it is less harmful. So what we would like to discuss is whether there is truth behind what is being spread around, that vaping is actually less harmful than smoking. So just disclosure, I have no known conflict of interest, and I'd like to already make the disclosure that the evidence I'm going to show today is actually the current evidence that we have right now. And I just like to remind everyone that that the evidence on electronic smoking devices continue to evolve, And after today, information may actually change as more is discovered about vaping. So these are the three learning objectives that I have, for us to be able to have a deeper understanding of what vaping is all about. No, so of course, let me discuss very briefly the burden of tobacco use, and then from then we will be discussing more the anatomy of vape products, so that we will be able to know how different are these vape products from the standard cigarettes, and then of course discuss the health effects of electronic cigarettes, for us to be able to know whether they are indeed less harmful. Now, this is just to show to you, emphasize that so far right now, we will have no argument already that there is really no benefit that we can derive from tobacco. But you have seen that up to now, there are still a lot of our people, particularly the Filipinos, who have actually continued to use tobacco despite knowing that they are harmful to one's health. So right now, we see that through the years, with all the advocacies that we are actually implementing, so we have actually seen a decline, in the prevalence of smoking. So from 2003, we have actually seen the smoking prevalence, rising to up as high as 35%. And in 2018, we know that it has already decreased to about 20%. And the latest, I believe, in the Global Adult Tobacco Survey, the last prevalence on smoking has actually gone to around 19%. So definitely, we see a really great strides, as far as tobacco control is concerned. But this is still a big problem. Having a 19-20% means that we still have millions of Filipinos who are still smoking, and therefore would get sick and die from tobacco use. But we have not seen, we have not really able to bring down the prevalence of smoking to really, like, let us say, just 1 digit. And yet now we see that we are now facing with another emerging epidemic, and that is the vaping epidemic. Now, when we talk about vaping, we are actually referring to the three types of electronic smoking devices. These are the ENDS, or the electronic nicotine delivery system. And then we also have the non-nicotine delivery system. And then last, we also have another electronic smoking device, which is actually being called as the heated tobacco products. No, this is now becoming a little bit more saleable. No, and these are being produced also by the big tobacco industry. So all in all, if you look at it, all of this is what we used to term as the electronic smoking devices. So I think that it is very important that we lump them all together into one terminology. And that is why we need to always bear in mind that when we talk about e-cigarettes, we are actually, and the heated tobacco products, we are actually referring to them as electronic smoking devices. So it is now very clear they are still smoking devices. No, they are not vapor, because with vapor, the what is actually contained there should just be the liquid that has evaporated into gas. But here with the vape smoke, this smoke still contain particulate matter. And therefore, it is just right to refer to them as smoke rather than vapor. Okay, that I would like to make it clear. Okay, so now we go to the anatomy of these electronic smoking devices. So let me just discuss with you the heated tobacco products. No, so number one, the difference, the similarity between a standard tobacco or a standard cigarette versus the tobacco that is being used in heated tobacco products. Both actually make use of tobacco. So magkaiba lang sila in the sense that with the heated tobacco products, it make use of a very slim, no, slim cigarette type of a product, but definitely they contain tobacco, and therefore similar to any standard cigarette, they will contain that 7,000 chemicals, no, that is actually seen in the smoke of standard cigarette. Now, the only difference probably between a standard tobacco and a heated tobacco product is that in a standard tobacco, you have to light, no, the one end of the cigarette, and that is actually what we call the combustion zone. And in this combustion zone, it makes use of a very high temperature, 700 to 950 degrees centigrade. But please take note that immediately after the combustion zone, no, which is 700 to 950 degrees centigrade, this temperature will actually go down, start to go down. So that now the temperature will be at a range of 200 to 600 degrees centigrade. So that when one smokes, the temperature that reaches the smoker will not be as high as 700 to 950 degrees. Otherwise, if that temperature is maintained, no, just think of it. Kung ganun kataas yung temperature no smoke that will be puffed by a smoker, masusunog, no, ang lalamunan niya. Okay? And therefore, that's the reason kung bakit, no, in the other part of the cigarette, the temperature actually goes down. But this is the point. When the temperature goes down, this will be in the distillation and the condensation and filtration zone, as you can see here in this slide. This is actually the area where most of the toxic chemicals in tobacco are being formed. Okay, and therefore, once the smoker now take a puff of that cigarette, all these toxicants, no, including the less volatile compounds that are actually being generated, no, in at lower temperature, now he gets all the chemicals, no, that is being formed in that cigarette smoke. Okay, so again, the type of smoke that one takes, no, or one gets when a cigarette takes a puff of cigarette is what we call the mainstream smoke, and the smoke that comes out of the burning tip of the cigarette, that is actually what we call the side stream smoke. And in those side stream smoke, it's that still contain all the other 7,000 chemicals that include already the cancer-causing agents, no, and other toxic chemicals found in that cigarette smoke. So, yung mga tao that are being exposed to the secondhand smoke or to the side stream smoke, they are basically inhaling around 7,000 chemicals, including cancer-causing agents, including chemicals that have been shown to be toxic, destructive, not to the parts of the body. Okay, so that in a nutshell is your standard cigarette. Now, what's the difference between the standard cigarette and the heated tobacco products? With heated tobacco products, you don't need to light up that cigarette. What is happening is that you actually make use of a heating mechanism. So you heat up the cigarette stick, no, and with that heat, that is actually the one that will generate the smoke, and in that smoke that you get, no, when you take a puff of that heated tobacco product, then that is where you will be able to inhale all the chemicals that are also found in that tobacco product, in that cigarette stick. Okay, so similar to a standard cigarette, remember it is at lower temperature where you can expect all the other toxic chemicals that can be generated. So it is through heating where you will be able to form all the toxic chemicals, including nicotine. You are able to inhale the nicotine from the heated cigarette stick from that heated tobacco product. Okay. Now, what about the e-cigarette? So very similar then, with the e-cigarette, you also have a heating element, and that heating element, this time, there is an liquid and a wick, which is actually similar to the wick that is being used in candles, but that wick and that heat and that electronic and that e-juice, the juice, there can be some interaction once it starts to be heated by the heating element from the electronic cigarette. So that interaction between the wick and the e-juice can actually form other chemicals that are not present in the e-juice. So I think later on I will be showing to you what kind of chemicals are being formed when you have interaction of the wick and the e-juice upon being heated by the heating elements of the electronic cigarette. But this is just to show to you in the middle part of the slide, these are the different generations of electronic cigarettes that are now available in the market. And we know that the most commonly used right now is what we call the 4th generation that makes use of the pan. So now even in Facebook or Instagram, they have a marketplace where they actually sell a lot of these pads. If you put in pads, madali lang yan, makikita mo, you can actually see pads, which is the ear pad that is being used in when you listen to music, but you will also be able to find a lot of pads for the electronic cigarettes that are being sold in different social media platforms. Of course, the other very popular e-cigarette is the 3rd generation, or what we call the tank. So yung medyo malalaki na nakikita ninyo, particularly maybe in earlier on, in the 2010 or 2015, 2016, the most commonly used e-cigarette is your 3rd generation. Now, on the right side of the screen, you will be able to see the different studies in the US, in Australia, and in UK. What is very important is that whatever you see in the label of these e-cigarettes, they may not necessarily give you the real picture of the content of that e-juices. Okay, so in the USA, they have actually found that those samples of pads or e-cigarette juices that are labeled to be non-nicotine containing, so supposedly no nicotine, but they were still able to find nicotine in about 91.4% of the samples that they have tested. In Australia, they have actually seen that nicotine was still detected in 6 out of 10 nicotine-free e-liquids. And lo and behold, 16 of those that were identified in that e-juice were known to be toxic or harmful to one's health. One was acutely toxic to humans. And then in the UK, this time looking into the content of nicotine, no, in the e-liquids, they have found that 46 out of the 50 had nicotine in excess of the labeled values. So definitely, no, these studies have actually shown that we cannot trust what we see in the labels of these e-juices. Now, this is just to show you the some of the chemicals that are found in standard cigarettes. So we see a lot of carcinogens, no? So ang dami niyan. We have the nitrosamines, no, which is in the form of your NNN, NNK, NAB, NAT, no? And then you have other carcinogens like your benzene, no? Acetaldehyde, formaldehyde. These are all known carcinogens. And of course, you can see here a lot of other chemicals and even heavy metals, no, such as your magnesium, your lead, no, which is known to be deleterious to the brain development, no. So these are actually all some of the chemicals found in cigarette smoke. Now, what about chemicals that are found in the e-cigarette smoke, or what they call as the vape pen aerosol? So you can now see here. Okay, so basically, it has been shown that all of those chemicals found in the standard cigarettes have also been found in this e-cigarette smoke. So the question earlier on, whether what will happen to you if you are exposed to the secondhand smoke of this vape smoke. Definitely, since you are inhaling a lot of carcinogens, a lot of toxic chemicals, and even heavy metals, then that means that you will be able to expect diseases or even deaths, no, that can be caused by exposure to the secondhand vape smoke. So just to show to you the yellow ones, these are the ones that has been shown, no, in the list of the FDA to be harmful and potentially harmful substances. Now, this is again to show to you whether the carcinogens that are being found, no, in e-cigarettes is consistently present, no, in whatever type of e-juices that you use. So you will be able to see magkakaiba lang, no? But all of the e-juices actually has been shown to contain nitrosamines, different levels of nitrosamines, no, in those e-juice or in those e-liquids. So definitely, since you have presence of your carcinogens, no, then whether high concentration or low concentration, no, it's just a matter of time that then you will still have the risk, no, of developing cancer from all these cancer-causing chemicals. Now, this is actually what I have been telling to you earlier on, no, the interaction of the wick and the e-juice, no, once it is heated. So this one is from a study of Becky et al. That showed the presence of carbonyl compounds created by the oxidation of the e-juice from contact with the heated nichrome wire or the wick, no, of e-cigarette. So we know now glycerol is actually the propylene, the glycerol is actually what is responsible for the density of the smoke. Of course, the greater than the glycerol content that is placed, no, on those e-liquids, the greater is the possibility, the greater will be the smoke, the greater the density of the smoke that will be created, no, by those electronic smoking devices. Now you see here that upon contact with the nichrome wire when heated. So this will actually lead to the formation of acrolein. Acrolein, we all know, is a known carcinogen. Therefore, if you are, then that means that you are actually being exposed to a smoke that contains a carcinogen or a cancer-causing agent. Now, the other known chemicals that is found in the e-juice is your propylene glycol. The propylene glycol is the chemical that is responsible for the flavor intensity, and also for that heat, the throat heat, which is actually what is being looked for by somebody who uses your e-cigarette. And here we see that the contact of the propylene glycol with the nichrome wire, once it is heated, will lead to the formation of two substances or chemical substances, and that is your formaldehyde and your acetaldehyde. Again, we know that the formaldehyde and acetaldehyde are known to cause cancer. So here, even if formaldehyde and acetaldehyde and the acrolein are not found in the e-juice, but you can see that the interaction of the e-liquids with the nichrome wire can lead to the development, the formation of these cancer-causing agents, to which the vapor or the one using your electronic smoking devices will actually be exposed to. Now, these are now just some of the results of the studies that were done looking into the effect of using your e-cigarettes. Now, this is from the Circulation, published in 2022, January of last year, looking into the effect of e-cigarettes on cardiopulmonary health. And what they have actually found out is that you can have an increase biomarkers of pulmonary disease in e-cigarette users. So that is the reason why the authors actually said that clinicians should monitor health risks of e-cigarette use, and that clinicians should discourage the non-smokers and the adolescents from using e-cigarettes. And also for the smokers, we need to make sure that they will not be engaged in dual use. So dual use will be using your standard cigarette as well as using your electronic devices. And we have actually been seeing increasing use, even in the clinics and even in smoking cessation clinics. We have seen the increasing use of dual use. And it is actually among those dual users that we have greater difficulty in really having a success in making people stop smoking and also stop using your e-cigarettes. So I think that for all of us in the health services, we need to make sure and we need to be very vigorous in really encouraging our patients not to use e-cigarettes and not to continue smoking. Okay, so and this one is actually a study by Rao et al. And looking into what is the effect of the cigarette smoke coming from any of the devices, including the ultrasonic vaping device that are being now looked into. And they say that these are devoid of heating coil. Kasi nga, because of the increasing evidence that the interaction of that coil and the e-juice actually leads to the formation of your cancer-causing agent. So now they're looking into devices where there is no heating coil to prevent the so-called development of the cancer-causing agents. But here we see that whatever device, electronic smoking device is being used, the aerosol or the smoke coming from all these devices all impair the flow mediated dilation, meaning to say that it causes vasoconstriction, no? And therefore this means that these individuals who are using electronic smoking devices are actually exposed to the possible risk of vascular changes or vascular damage, no? And therefore, we now see that definitely if you use vape, you cannot actually consider it as a harmless activity. Now, what are the odds of getting COPD? No, for us pulmonologists, this is quite important because a lot of our patients are getting COPD because of smoking. So, what about vaping? Is it also possible that they will also develop chronic obstructive lung disease? This is a study by Perez et al. In 2018, which is a population data. They examined the association between e-cigarette use and the development of COPD among adults, no, in the US, and they have found that the odds of getting COPD among e-cigarette users is 86% higher compared to the non-users, even after controlling for confounders. Now, in two studies in 2019, one from Bata et al., they did a longitudinal analysis of population data and they looked into the odds of COPD in former or current e-cigarette users, and they note that the odds ratio is 25% higher compared to the non-users. And furthermore, their study also showed that if you are dual users, so you are using both standard cigarette and e-cigarette, then the dual use actually can also pose higher risk, no, compared to just using e-cigarette alone or standard cigarette alone. In another study by Williams et al., so this time they did a cross-sectional study, they actually found that non-cigarette smokers but using e-cigarettes were more than 2 times likely to have asthma or COPD than non-users. So all of these studies are actually showing to us, very early on that the risk of getting chronic obstructive lung disease, from using e-cigarette, is actually higher, and the risk is even increased further if you are using both e-cigarette and the standard cigarettes. So definitely, it can cause a lot of lung problems, later on. Now, of course, this is another evidence, that will tell us that vaping is really not less harmful. Okay? So because we have seen in the US, narinig natin ito, this has become a big news, in the US in 2020, and they have actually had more than 2,000, nearly 3,000 that were hospitalized, and 68 actually died from what we call as the E-Valley or the e-cigarette ventilator-associated lung injury. And this we have seen across in the US, and there were also some reports in the European countries. Okay, now after the COVID-19 pandemic, mukhang wala na tayong narinig, no, about E-Valley. But except for this one, this was published in April 2022, wherein again another person died as a result of vaping. So this person was intubated, no, and as I've said, no, he died, and he also suffered from what we call as the E-Valley. Now, what about in the Philippines? In the Philippines, personally, I have actually seen 2 patients who developed E-Valley or an e-cigarette ventilator or e-cigarette associated vape associated lung injury. Okay. Of course, when we talk about lung injury, there is actually a spectrum of lung injury. Not all lung injury will lead to the use of mechanical ventilation. There will be lung injuries that are milder in form that will not necessarily lead to patients being intubated and then hooked to mechanical ventilation. For mild lung injury, you can have respiratory symptoms like shortness of breath, no? And this is actually what I have seen in one patient, no? In one of my patients who is 21 years old, used to smoke, but since this is a very young female. She heard that e-cigarette is actually less harmful compared to smoking. So she shifted to vaping. And after 1 year of vaping, she started to have difficulty of breathing. And that is actually the time when she approached me because of the difficulty of breathing. And so I found that she is actually using e-cigarette, no? And she is actually using some one that has flavor in it, no? And one that contains nicotine. So I told her to stop. And after stopping, she continued to have to experience shortness of breath despite stopping. It took her actually about 3 months, no, before she was able to feel some improvement in her breathing, no. So 3 months of stopping the use of e-cigarettes, no. And the chest X-ray actually showed the chest X-ray was quite bad. So I actually told her that he has some form of E-Valley, except that the E-Valley that she had was a mild form of lung injury. So I think that it is very important right now that people should be aware that there is such thing as lung injury caused by the use of e-cigarette or by vaping, no? And that you need to really, number one, if you can avoid vaping, then that will be the best. If you are actually smoking and you want to be rid of the negative effects of smoking, the best is actually just to stop smoking. For pulmonologists, we do not advise people who wants to quit smoking to shift to e-cigarettes. Why? Because there is still the potential risk of getting illnesses and dying from the use of your e-cigarettes. So very clear, no, that there is now growing evidence that the use of your electronic smoking devices actually causes harm. And this evidence come from toxicologic analysis, no? So showing that they contain harmful chemicals and toxins that has been shown to cause cancer, ischemic heart disease, lung disease, and even stroke. And then also, this evidence comes from animal and human cell line studies, no, showing that e-cigarette can have multiple negative effects. Of course, there is evidence in humans, no, we have case reports of popcorn lung disease from vape users, no, there is also case reports of COPD, accelerated COPD. And of course, right now, there are we are now getting reports of e-valley cases, from here in the country, from the use of these e-cigarettes. So definitely, we know that the evidence that is being shown to us right now is that e-cigarettes are really not less harmful. They are harmful and they are not safe. So why are we now focusing on e-cigarettes, enlightening people about the use of e-cigarettes and their effects on our health? Mainly because we see that the number of people that are now using e-cigarettes are getting to be higher and higher. So in the US, so on the left, you can see through the years, the rapid increase in the number of users of these electronic smoking devices. And the increase in the number of users of electronic smoking devices are more seen, among the younger ones, So that is the reason why we are so concern about this increasing use of e-cigarettes. And in our own country, the Philippine data will show to us that among those who have actually tried vaping, 15 years and older, 2.8%. And then for those 13 to 15 years older, please note, you now have 14.1% of our children who are now using e-cigarettes. And this is the latest survey, from the Global Youth Tobacco Survey in 2021. So definitely, even in our country, we are seeing really a big problem, with our children getting exposed and starting to use e-cigarettes at a very young age. So, and then we know that unlike what the tobacco industry are saying, that they are just making this available for the smokers not to be able to quit smoking. So we have seen that, with the National Nutrition Survey in 2019, 44% of those who are vaping are non-smokers. Okay, so meaning to say it is not true what they are saying, that they're just making it available for smokers, because we see from the data that 44% of e-cigarette users are non-smokers. Okay, so we know that so instead of harm reduction, then this is really, since vaping is actually being started among non-smokers, then this, instead of harm reduction, that this is basically increased harm. So which is actually a big problem, Again, when we talk about reduced harm, usually the true harm reduction is actually are actually supported by a strong body of scientific data that will show that the interventions, whatever interventions it may be, will be practical, feasible, effective, safe, and cost effective. So which is actually what we are seeing, like with harm reduction as far as hepatitis B is concerned. Diba? Sa hepatitis B, we try to reduce the harm from for hepatitis B by making sure that, the needles that has been used by patients infected with hepatitis B, we try to make sure that those needles will not be pricked in some other people's arms, so that is how we do that is the real harm reduction. So the goal is, for harm reduction, we also have to make sure that the goal is not just harm reduction in an individual, but also harm reduction for the entire population, and that the intervention by itself is not harmful, So therefore, when it is not harmful, that means that there is no risk that it can cause harm, which we know now from a body of evidence that that is not true for e-cigarettes. And then as far as the goal is concerned, maybe the goal for individual who if they will be able to stop smoking can be true, be true, but on the population, as for the population, meaning to say people who are exposed to the smoke of the e-cigarette smoke, since in that smoke you will be able to find toxic chemicals, including carcinogens. Therefore, that is still not reduced harm. There is still the potential risk that you are actually exposing people, surrounding the vapor for any harm. For that matter, okay? So as far as a strong body of evidence, it remains to be seen whether there is really evidence that it can really be an intervention that we can make use of to reduce the harm. So in reality, what we want is, if you are a cigarette and cigarette user, we want you to stop smoking. So from using, we want you to be a non-user. Okay, that is true harm reduction, because you remove the risk for any of the ill effects of cigarette, and even for the e-cigarette. But with electronic smoking devices, we have seen that from non-users, they now start, or the non-smokers starting the use of e-cigarette, then that is actually increased harm. From cigarette smoking to being dual user, that is still increased harm. So that is not true harm reduction. So reduce harm with vapes, myth or fact? I would actually say that it is really a myth, because the studies have shown that there is even increased risk to develop lung and heart diseases. Studies showed presence of cancer-causing agent in e-cigarettes and your heated tobacco products, and therefore you are exposed to the potential risk of developing cancer. Okay, and for healthcare providers, for us healthcare providers, we always take the precautionary principle. So we take caution, until a product is proven to be safe, and that it will not cause any death or diseases. So as far as the e-cigarette is concerned, there is no scientific evidence, no strong evidence that will tell us that indeed it will reduce harm. And here at the population level, the net effect is still increased harm, because we know, this is US data, 11% of those who are using e-cigarette are non-smokers. 59% of those who are using e-cigarette continue to smoke. So basically, you will be able to see that about 70% of the e-cigarettes are at increased harm rather than reduced harm. So I'd like to end my my talk by this. I'd like to remind everyone that there is really nothing more powerful that we can do for our patients who smoke than to help them quit. So let us not shift to another product that can cause harm to our health. Let us just help them to simply stop smoking. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Maricar, for that presentation. I'm gonna watch it again, but I am just blown away by the evidence that you've shown. Years ago we were saying we didn't have enough evidence, but this is just it's actually terrible, right? that here we're seeing this much harm, and I think the word needs to go out, and you presented it so well. Ang galing talaga, ang husay talaga. You're going to see the appreciation of our audience there. Clapping, may mga hearts, may mga ganyan, no? And I think, we will talk about how do we get the word out with our next reactor. But thank you so much for this presentation, Maricar. I mean, I think of our public health lectures, this is one of the best. Thank you so much. Raymond, introduce our next speaker.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Susie. And thank you so much to Dr. Maricar. Very comprehensive presentation po, no? It really something that we a lot of things that we learned from this presentation. So we'll have our reactor for today. He's the managing director of Brand Ideas Incorporated and president of Hub Creative. These are both creative agencies, and he's the founding member president of both FCAP and ASH Philippines po. He has been working behind the scenes for this work po, no, in terms of anti-smoking campaigns. Please welcome to your screens Bobby Del Rosario. Bobby.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. No, actually, the evidence, I guess, is really overwhelming. You know, there's no such thing as a less harmful. It's always, you know, there's still a significant amount of danger shifting from the regular tobacco use to ESDs. No? I guess my role here is really on the communication part. It's nowadays kasi it's very challenging for communication kasi social media no? Dati kasi tatlo lang TV, print, radio, and sometimes OOH or out of home advertising. Now it's kind of sophisticated. It's social media in different forms, and especially with kids, which the vaping or the ESDs are targeting. Very active yan . So in other words, in any communication that you do, you have to really consider social marketing, social media. You have to truly understand and have a grasp of how it affects our target market. No? Sometimes hindi nga lang bata ang kasama dyan sa social media, maski matatanda . Even in the last the election, social media played a big role. No? So this is how how extensive it is, yung coverage on social media. Now, I guess what is the you have to understand the mindset of the youth. No? So one is they're really immortal. They think they're immortal. No, they think they're they're exempt from any harm, whatever the doctors say. As a matter of fact, ang sakit nga kasi I even know doctors. They vape, and not vape. IQOS sila. IQOS kasi you have to segmentize also yan . Yung smoking . I think for me, this is me. It might not be sent. I don't have the science or the data to prove it, but sa akin, ang cigarettes is now parang pang low end. Ang nagsisigarilyo na lang yung mga taxi driver, jeepney, kasi mura . Diba? Mura pa compared to the other. Then you have the electronic devices, the vaping in two forms, the second and the third, I think. Yan, I think, is more on the C2 or C3 socio-X class. Kasi medyo mas mahal sa sigarilyo, pero dun sa IQOS level, mas mahal ang IQOS. So, yung IQOS naman, yan yung pang social. Kasi status symbol yan . You have to have 3,000 pesos at least to pay for it. Samantalang yung vaping, I think, 1,000 or something. I'm not quite sure about the SRP. So what I'm saying is, yung mga bata, active yan sa social media. And when we talk about social media, they talk about, or they look up at influencers. So the key really is, iba na yung battlefield. Nung una, TV tayo radio, di ba? Yung mga talk shows, communicating the harms of cigarettes. Now, iba ng platform sa social media na. Ito na yung pinag-uusapan natin na mga influencers. One influencer, I know, meron pa siya 133 million followers. Imagine that audience. And one post niya lang can make a big difference. So, I think we have to start to analyze the dynamics of the media now. And then that's where we attack or execute differently yung ating mga communication. Not only probably to the youth, but also, I think everyone Everyone na to. Every influencer has his own core content. May iba, they talk about science. May iba, they talk about lifestyle, etc. So, o iba naman, the politics of it. So now you can discuss it through the influencers. Although, it's a big challenge kasi most big influencers, syempre, they make money. But sometimes probably we can touch on the empathy part of people. We can use this as part of our tool to communicate the things we want to say about ESDs, which is basically harmful. So with influencers also, one thing is that real experiences sa kanila, diba? They look up, most influencers, they communicate or they share their stories experiential. So totoong tao sila sa kanilang followers. So to a certain extent, idol sila. Para silang mga artista nung araw. Na kung anong ginagawa ni Fernando Po Jr., yun din ang gusto nila. Yung pag inapi si FPJ sa Mindanao, sa sinihan, binabaril nila yung screen. Diba? Ganun nung araw, nakwento sa akin ng mga tao sa Mindanao daw. Pag inapi si FPJ, tali sila na apektuhan Kaya nanggigigil din sila sa galit. So these are the same effect, I guess, with influencers, how much they can, change the tide for us. And again, one more thing, kasi the dangers naman kasi in social media, problema, walang nagre-regulate niyan. So it's a double-edged sword. It's the source of fake news also. Diba? So probably there should be a regulator, an agency or something that can regulate it. Ang problema kasi sa atin dito, ang ASC, which is the Advertising Standard Council, which is the one that regulates all content of messages and claims of any institution or companies showing TV commercials, kiniklear sa kanila doon. But with social media, post screening. Meaning, kung meron lang nagreklamo doon sa content, that's the only time they will look into it. So, but this is just a private, a private institution. Wala talagang ngipin, in other words, kasi it's not a government institution. Although they work hand in hand with the DOH and other DTI, but still, it's not a government arm. So, I guess that's it. I think with it's clear that social media is the key, but the point is how do we regulate it? How can we use it to our advantage? That's it, Doc Susie.
Thank you so much, Bobby, for that insight. I think there's a lot we can talk about in relation to that, and then looking back at the lessons learned from tobacco control, how we actually banned all advertising. So I think, that's the extreme measure that's needed. That's me, because I'm really very passionate about this. Anyway, I'm wondering whether Ted Herbosa is here. Ted, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here as ordered.
Okay, Ted, come on. Give your thoughts on.
Yeah.
I mean, Ted, you played a big role in the sin taxes. Some years ago.
And also Maricar. Maricar was also our partner
Maricar
during
also.
that time.
Yeah, you were all working together. And now, at that time, we didn't have as much evidence as what Maricar has
Correct.
presented. So what are your thoughts now on, how do we move forward with this? This seems to be the new epidemic for the kids.
Sige. Well, first of all, Susie and Raymond, good afternoon. Great talk, Maricar, Dr. Limpin. Very informative, and good afternoon to everyone watching this webinar. Happy to be back. To our panelists, also Bobby Del Rosario for that insight on communications. I think that was very important because during the syntax fight, Susie was with the World Health Organization and I was Undersecretary of Health. I was actually made by Susie to be the face for fighting for syntax. And I had technical support from her team. She attached to me a communications expert that actually told my story as a former smoker and that the father that died of lung cancer with brain mets. So it was a very powerful story. So we used that and we passed the syntax. But first of all, no, our speaker, Maricar, gave us a shed light on this very grave issue that threatens our public health and also the well-being of our whole society. It is a matter of really great concern because of our story with the cigarette and tobacco industry, which took decades before we eventually admitted that it would harm people. And this current problem, the vaping problem, will also affect our future generations because they started them young. Buti pa nga noon, yung tobacco was for the mga Marlboro cowboys riding a horse. I mean, the gentlemen and the elderly. But now, it's women and children. So wala nang gender, no? In fact, I think I see more women using these vaping materials kasi it seems to be sexier than holding a stick of cigarette. And I think Dr. Limpin discussed the evidence against the use of vaping and its undeniable harm to the health of an individual. So, vaping is really this, you're inhaling and exhaling vapor produced by these electronic cigarettes or devices. And it's so popular nowadays. And in recent years, younger and younger than those people who started smoking. It's being marketed that way, as mentioned by Bobby. It's targeted marketing to a younger market with the fake news that it is a safer alternative to cigarette smoking. And I think that's where if you're going to work on communications, we should say it's not safer. And we should show the science that actually Maricar was able to elicit. So they're creating an illusion. And the illusion is, cigarette smoking is bad. They put syntaxes on it. You use. In fact, nakalusot yan, our law, actually, hindi daw kasama doon sa, ano nga ba yun? Maricar, nakausap mo na ba ang DTI? Because we were planning to talk to our DTI secretary because in the vaping law, inalis siya sa FDA at pinasa siya sa DTI. So something very sinister happened during the passing of that law. And I think we need to fix that with all the evidence. The other one we need to address is really the fact that these chemicals, different chemicals, newer chemicals, more chemicals are present in these vaping products. Contrary to popular belief, these devices do not merely emit harmless water vapor. They contain a cocktail of toxic substances, including the dose of nicotine that you want to put, the formaldehyde that she described, acrolein, and other harmful chemicals. These substances have been linked to a multitude of health problems from lung damage to cardiovascular diseases. So one of the greatest concerns surrounding vaping is its impact on our respiratory system, our lungs. And inhalation of these chemicals damages the delicate lung tissues and impairs their ability to function properly. And many studies shown by Maricar have shown that regular use of these e-cigarettes can lead to the development of chronic respiratory conditions, bronchitis, asthma, COPD, the valley, and inhalation of these ultrafine particles, not only the chemicals present in these aerosols, penetrate deep into the lungs, causing an inflammatory response and leading to irreversible lung damage. The effects of vaping extend beyond the respiratory system. We all know this with nicotine. It's addictive. The vaping products will also affect your mental health. It also increases because of the risk of addiction, it affects the brain of very young adolescent individuals whose brain is probably continuing to develop, and of course, all the detrimental effects of nicotine on our brain function. And furthermore, the nicotine addiction can be a gateway. That's the old story. All these substances lead to substance abuse of other substances, even illicit and illegal drugs. And while the long-term effects of vaping had been studied, recent studies really show severe lung injuries associated with vaping, and exquisitely presented here by Maricar. And these concerns were up as early as 2019 in the US. I think what happened is 2020, we became so concerned with COVID, we were distracted. And then hundreds of people took it up. And many are losing their lives. Maricar elucidated that. And today, the question of Susie is correct, no? We really need to underscore the urgency of addressing this issue, no? And highlight the potential dangers of vaping to our health. It's necessary to understand the marketing tactics, and I'm glad Bobby explained that it's really social media. And that's more difficult, right? To target, unlike before. We just put a mark on the cigarette cap. Cigarette smoking may be dangerous to health, and then we put pictures of dangers. But today it's more different because it's, they put flavors, they put sleek designs on the devices. There are deceptive claims. I think this is where I think the public health or the health sector should really come forward. The evidence that Maricar gives, that we refute the fact that it's an illusion that it is safer than cigarette smoking. And then the fact that it's being given to young adolescents. To me, their bodies are still developing, and I think they're harming their bodies way too early, and that those effects will come later on. So the evidence for vaping is really that it's harmful. I think that you need no convincing to me that it's harmful. The only problem now is if it poses a threat to the well-being of our people, should we ban it? Next question. If it's that bad, why are we talking about regulating it? Well, should we ban it? Of course, if we ban it, it just goes illegal, which probably will also give more difficulty. So I think the middle ground is really going to some form of regulations and marketing campaign or information campaign so that we can tide this public health problem. We need to work together, Susie. I think the way we work together when we pass the sin tax, we need some solidarity to have a healthier, safer future and free our youth from this harmful grip of vaping. Thank you, Susie.
Uy, thank you so much, Ted, and thank you for coming on such short notice. Again, using all the mga emoticons, no? So, and thank you for that, the historical background of it, no? Because this is a continuing battle. Okay, we are going to our open forum, and Raymond's going to give us a short break. Raymond, go ahead.
Just before we go into the questions po, no, we'll just take a very short break for our public service announcement for today.
Maaari na bang magpabakuna ang mga batang 5 hanggang 11 taong gulang?
Oo, nagsimula ito noong Pebrero.
Nagpabakuna na ba kayo?
Oo, nagpabakuna na kami.
Ay, mga bata, magpabakuna na kayo.
Stay safe and stay well. Mga bata, magpasama na sa Bakuna Center. Thank you so much, TVUP. The COVID communication public service announcement, just one of the many creative outputs of the Stop COVID Deaths team to push for pediatric vaccinations. That's tied up to the news update earlier today na yung pong mga unvaccinated comprise majority po of those who die from COVID-19. So really, we are pushing for a vaccination for those who have not taken any vaccination, particularly for COVID-19. Please share this video clip with all of your social media accounts. Stay safe and stay well. Magpasama na po sa Bakuna Center. Okay, we'll dive into the first question, Dr. Susie.
Okay, so this is for everyone. I think this problem is so close to home. I think the first question would be, what do you say to your children or your nephews or nieces? Kasi it's so prevalent, right? And we know that the more you say no, the more they want to do it or they hide. I don't know what it is. Bob, you have four sons. Tell us a little about your experience as a parent.
Yeah, okay. So I have 4 boys. One is 30, turning 30, is an ESD user. He's into he works for Food Panda, but he's also an artist, a singer, composer. So he's a band. He's doing well. Nasa Spotify yung kanyang. Then I have a second son who's 28, who used to be an ESD user. And I have 21, never used. I have a 16-year-old, Xavier. So anyway, yung pinakamatanda, being in the creative world, centric people, he continues even if I say so, stop na. No? After laying down the cards on, what happens. The second one followed. Stop na. The third one, wala namang problema. The fourth one, the bunso, since he was 13, he's now 16. He's been telling me, Dad, ang daming gumagamit sa Xavier ng vape sa banyo, all those things. No? But he never used. But that's an observation. But what I'm trying to point is that, it's close to my home. It's inside my home. One followed, the other did not. So what does it say about it? They know the consequences. It's the environment. I understand, even if he wants to stop, every night may gig, they play, bands, etc. He used. Kasi it's just like the olden days. The same strategy of the industry, the tobacco industry, they're using the same one. You have to be cool. You have to be in. Ito to. And the difference is that before they use it in print ads, as the doctor did mention, naka-cowboy suit, cool ka, di ba? Riding a horse, etc. Now it's different. It's through word of mouth, through influencers. Because a lot of influencers also use it. That's the environment, you go to Pobla, ang dami dyan. Lahat naka-IQOS. IQOS hindi siya vape. Kasi masaya. Kasi mga social, siyempre. Yun ang ginagamit nila. No? So, it's quite difficult. I've been here for more than 3 decades of, being an advocate of tobacco control. Pero, failed ako, di ba? Failed kami for my panganay. But the others, okay naman. I think it's very, very difficult nowadays. Kasi nga, they feel immortal, etc. It's quite difficult. But you have to just let go and then make them realize later on their own. Accept the fact that it's bad for me. If I keep on telling them yung mga fear factor, it doesn't work eh. It doesn't work. I keep
It's the Bob, it's the normalization, parang
yeah.
Parang it's the norm, no? I recall both of my parents smoked, and my dad was like a chain smoker. But six of us, the 3 boys all became heavy smokers. All the girls never smoked. So it's hit and miss, no? Pagdating sa pamilya. How about Maricar? Maricar, you've got sons. Did you ever have a problem with this?
No, I did
Takot
not.
lang nila. Ang takot nila kay Maricar.
No, I did not have any problems. Number one, because they know my advocacy.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were trying to look into the e-cigarettes, particularly yung mga IQOS, yung Juuls, so kasama ko pa sila investigating. So they are part of my investigative team.
Indoctrinated.
So, related doon sa ko. So I think it's not a problem because they are continuously exposed to me. So they know that yung environment that was created for them basically is an environment where they know that smoking and vaping is really not cool, because of the diseases that will be caused by these products. So I agree with Bobby that the main problem right now is that the environment is really very conducive for people to use any electronic smoking devices, lalo na kung the environment is making it parang appear that it's the cool thing that they can do. So I think that we need to destroy that kind of environment. In the same manner that more or less, no, when it comes to smoking, alam na ng mga tao na hindi cool ang manigarilyo, right? So it has now become that way. So we now see not many of the people are smoking indoors anymore. So they have to go out. And in fact, pag may naninigarilyo, di ba, madalas sasabihin nilang, sandali lang, sigarilyo lang ako sa labas. No? That's what they are saying now. But with vaping, hindi yan ang kultura pa rin natin. Ang kultura is similar to the olden times, no, of smoking, na everybody can actually just smoke in front of you. No, that is now where we are right now as far as vaping is concerned. Kasi parang nagmamalaki pa nga sila no, na nagve-vape sila. Kasi sabi nga ni Bob, parang status symbol. Kasi it's more expensive and therefore parang very proud pa sila that they can actually afford to buy the e-cigarettes.
Thank you, Maricar. Ted, ikaw puro babaeng anak mo pero yung mga nanliligaw ba, bawal mag-vape? Ano bang nangyayari dyan?
I'm glad you talked about that because I agree with Bob and Maricar. It's the environment, no? My wife talagang anti-smoker yan. Bata pa yan, nililigawan ko pa lang yan, bawal talaga ang sigarilyo. She's an anesthesiologist, so even patients that require anesthesia, cardiovascular anesthesia, pinahihinto nila ng sigarilyo yan bago nila i-anesthesia. So she's long been an anti-smoker, no? So my kids talagang wala, none of them, you know how my wife acts, pag may naninigarilyo, naaamoy niya na. Ako, when I tried to stop, kasi dali na mahuminto. Kasi when you're with your friends, nagiinuman, may pack ng sigarilyo dyan, aabot ka talaga. And then mag-uwi mo, amoy niya na. So huli na naman ako. Nanigarilyo ka, no? Kasi amoy na amoy. So that's the environment my children grew up. So smoking was looked at as really bad. Kaya none of them, pag may nanligaw dyan naninigarilyo, ayaw na kaagad. Lagpak na. And I agree with Bob and Maricar. I think this is what we need. This is how we should work it out. Maybe we should start talking to schools. Maybe the schools should really stop vaping to educate the youth na masama ito. Maybe Maricar should create a module that's less scientific, get our COBS people to really show the younger people the dangers of vaping, get the message out there to the youth and to the schools. Baka DepEd, baka si Vice President Sara would be willing to take this on. Alam mo naman si VP Sara, magaling yung humawak ng advocacy. Baka because of her many followers, baka pwedeng push yung no vaping in any school, in any primary, secondary,
especially
K-12
teachers.
school.
No? But you know what? I remember Maricar and Bob and Ted, no? Some of the more effective campaigns for youth was really not that it was bad for your health, but that it makes your teeth yellow or that it makes your skin wrinkled. No, parang pupunta ka dun sa pupunta ka dun sa ano ba yung ayaw ng mga bata? Ayaw nilang pangit yung kutis nila, di ba? Ayaw nilang mabaho sila. So I think we probably need to go in that direction. Anyway, thank you guys.
Yeah, I have 3 girls. Alam ko ang ayaw nila. Ayaw nilang maitim na kilikili. Nakakaitim ba ng kilikili ito? Vaping. Kasi pag yan, sigurado ko all the girls will no longer vape. Nakakaitim yan ng kilikili.
Yan ang disinformation natin, di ba?
Oh yeah, gawa tayo ng false news, fake news.
Yeah, okay. All right, we are running out of time. There is so much we'd like to talk about, but I think, Raymond, you can take one more question from the audience and then we'll have to wrap up.
Okay. First question, but I think it's more of it was already answered na naman. This one comes from Dr. Joseph Torto na pathological changes in the lungs caused by vaping. I'm not sure if you'd like to jump in very quickly lang, Dr. Limpin, for Dr. Tortona's question.
Yeah, so since it contains all those toxic chemicals, no, so the pathologic changes will be concerning the airways, where you can have remodeling and changes, destruction even of the alveolar epithelium, which can actually cause chronic obstructive lung disease. And then of course, kung magkaroon sila ng yung tinatawag naming bronchiolitis obliterans or popcorn lung disease, no, then you can also have destruction of the airways, so which can cause a lot of respiratory problems. So syempre, no, bukod pa diyan yung cancer, lung cancer. So but I think before we will be able to see lung cancer, it will really take some time, no. But similar to smoking, we don't want to to see people getting sick of lung cancer before we do anything, no. So we need to be a little bit more proactive right now before we see a lot of patients dying because of vaping.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Limpin. We'll now jump to our two fun quiz questions. Can we have them on the screen right now? I'll read the statement and then we'll have you tell the correct answer, ma'am, straight from the expert. So the first question is, vaping is less harmful than cigarettes. In the Zoom, there are 25% that said that it is true, as well as in Slido. What's the correct answer, ma'am?
It's false. There is no scientific evidence that will tell us that it is less harmful. The science is that the content of some chemicals are lower in concentration, but there is nothing that will show to us that because of this lower concentration, less harmful siya. In the same manner, pag may cancer ka, kahit mababa ang concentration niyan, you can still get cancer.
Okay.
So it's false.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maricar. For the second question, we have vaping is less addicting. In the Zoom, you will see 18% said that it's true and 25% naman untrue sa Slido.
Yeah. So it is not less addicting. So it's false, no? In fact, doon sa mga pinakita ko sa inyo, halos lahat, no? That's the reason why they can actually make use it or offer it as an alternative to smoking, or as cessation agent, no, because it contains nicotine. So it can be actually some kind of, we can actually use it as some form of nicotine replacement therapy. But the problem with vaping is that the nicotine can the peak of the nicotine can actually be very high, very fast, no? And that fast rise in the concentration of nicotine will actually be the one that can cause more addiction, kasi it gives you immediately the high that one gets, no, from vaping or from smoking. So whether it is less addicting, no, because the mechanism for the increase in the concentration of your nicotine is very similar to that of smoking. So hindi siya less addicting, it's the same.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Maricard. Right now, we'll be moving on to our evaluation poll. But as we are showing our evaluation poll, which is a 4-point Likert scale composed of 5 questions, we will ask our speakers to take this time to come up with their minute or so na last message, anything that you'd want the audience to take away from this webinar. So I'll read the questions before we turn the floor over to you. First question, the panelists demonstrated thorough knowledge of the topic. Number 2, the panelists were well prepared and organized. Number 3, the panelists spoke clearly and audibly. Number 4, the panelists used appropriate language with technical medical jargons adequately explained. And finally, the panelists contributed to new perspectives and knowledge on managing various key health issues. We do not send out a separate evaluation poll. Ito na po iyon. So we encourage everyone to put in their feedback for this webinar as we move on to the final messages from our speakers. Dr. Susie.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Okay, Ted, ikaw muna.
Sige
Your
ako,
part.
I think we need to act. I think Maricar's presentation led me to the revelation that we should act. We should talk to the new PMA president. We just had our PMA annual convention. I think we should talk to the president of PMA, who's an anesthesiologist also, and I'm sure also going to help us with this advocacy. I think the whole Philippine Medical Association should now embrace the data that Maricar has been able to present and push for this to our legislators, push our legislators and our executive department to create regulatory frameworks and regulatory environments. Like so schools is one of them. Selling in the store is another one. I mean, I go to the mall and they're in the middle of the lobby of the mall. The ones selling this IQOS and juice are always in the best locations. But for cigarettes, you can't, right? Cigarettes are we put rules. I think we should start looking at that as well. And then, of course, I think the best part is really educating our kids younger, even before they even try to think of it, and make it not cool. Make them realize that IQOS and juice are actually not cool, and their lungs will really get damaged.
Thank you so much. It's Ted Boss, head of the Emergency Department of the Philippine General Hospital, and of course, haligi ng Stop COVID Deaths. No? Okay, let's go to Bobby.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a very good point in mentioning Dr. Ted Americana. Let's start the schools. The vice president is very active. I think we met her together in Davao City, one of the Red Orchids Award. She's passionate about tobacco control also, because we all know the fact that this tobacco, the vaping industry or the ESD, they're targeting youth. Starting young, so I think it is a very good start. And aside from that, probably we have accomplished a great thing with the tobacco control advocacy in the last 3 decades. The tobacco industry and our strategy, they've used it before, we've been using it now, different executions now. But we won. I think we gained a lot, we accomplished a lot with that. And if we apply the same thing, find a different execution, I think we may have achieved the same thing. Pasasara natin yung tobacco plant sa Batangas. Magsasara rin sa Marikina. They're shifting all this the tobacco industry is now shifting their money and production into the vaping and the heating devices. That's their next step. The profitability P&L loss, profitability and loss statement of the Lushutan Group dropped dramatically because of the loss in the Philip Morris Fortune Tobacco side business. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bobby. Bobby is the managing director of Brand Ideas and president of Hub Creative, also staunch anti-tobacco advocate. And finally, Maricar Limpin, who is, you see her on television, you hear her talking about many different topics, but this one is very close to her heart. So Maricar, your final words.
Yeah, thank you. The information that vaping is less harmful really came from the tobacco and vaping industries. So if you look at the history of smoking, this idea on harm reduction is really not new. They have actually made use of this before. No, they introduced cigarette lights, making people believe that it is less harmful. But we all know that it is not less harmful. It is still as harmful as smoking regular cigarettes. So now we have here vaping now being presented to us as again less harmful. So I think if we look back at the history, we should not really be fooled by the industry again into believing that vaping is less harmful. What we need to do is look at the science, and the science is telling us right now that it is not less harmful. It is still harmful. It is still not safe. Therefore, we need to be a little bit smart now. No, we have to be smarter let us not just believe what the industry is telling us. We have to look at the science. And based on the science, I think I will agree with Ted and also with Bob that we need to really act now. So medyo pangit po yung regulations natin on vaping. So I think that the challenge is really for us to present the scientific evidence to the lawmakers, and I hope that the lawmakers for once will listen to us experts. I hope that they will not listen to people that have vested interest. No, what is the interest of the medical community? The only interest of the medical community is to protect the health, to promote the health of the citizenry. So I hope that the lawmakers will listen to us, because we are doing what is just right and what is the best for the Filipino people. And that is to get to take them away from anything that will cause harm and death. No, so we have to work on making a better regulation on these electronic smoking devices.
Thank you very much. It's Dr. Maricar Limpin, one of our leading pulmonologists. She's at the Philippine Heart Center and also immediate past president of the Philippine College of Physicians. Thank you, Maricar, for all the time that you put into the presentation, and Bob and Ted for your time and your thoughtful insights for this discussion. We're going to have a brief synthesis from Stella Jose from the Philippine General Hospital. Stella, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar. And Dr. Maricar Limpin told us about ENDS, the ENDS, the Electronic Nicotine Delivery System, the Electronic Non-Nicotine Delivery System, and the heated tobacco products. You know, this is the first time actually I've heard of some of these, so I beg your indulgence. So I made her talk very concise, and she said that the standard tobacco cigarette temperature reaches 200 to 600 degrees. And when you light the cigarette tip, there's a side stream of smoke. And this side stream of smoke contains 7,000 chemicals, imagine that. And the heated tobacco products, the temperature is lower, but more chemicals are inhaled. So what is seen in the label, like the electronic non-nicotine delivery system, is not really what is present in the e-cigarette. So we cannot trust what the advertisement says or what we see in the label. Now, carbonyl compounds created by oxidation of the e-juice that comes out of the tip of that e-cigarette is a heated nichrome wire, which contains glycerol and acrolein, which are carcinogenic compounds. Dr. Maricar Limpin said that cardiovascular studies reported that there is sympathetic activation, vascular stiffening, and endothelial dysfunction associated with adverse cardiovascular outcome. And she said that the odds of getting COPD in former or current e-cigarette users is 25% higher than non-users. I always tell my patients, no, the lungs, once it's damaged, the damage is permanent. And unlike the heart, you can have a bypass, or a kidney, you can have a transplant, but the lungs, there is no remedy. Once it's damaged already. In her conclusion, she said that there's an increased risk to develop lung and heart disease when you do vaping, and the presence of cancer-causing agents in e-cigarettes and heat tobacco products has the very high potential risk to develop cancer, and the healthcare worker should take precautionary principles, and we take caution until proven safe on anything that can cause disease or death. As an aside, I have 4 children, and gladfully none of them smoke because my husband is also a non-smoker. I think it also starts with the family. That's my take on this. Mr. Bobby Del Rosario mentioned the social media in its big role, and it is, she said, a double-edged sword. You know, the youth, they think that they are immortal and they're exempted from harm. They are not immortal and they are not exempted from harm. So for all the youth who are listening to us now, please follow our advice. And also, we take note of the influencer in social media. With just one post, thousands will follow to him. I hope we have influencers here who will influence our youth to not to vape, not to use cigarettes. And this is how we can use the social media in a good way. Now, Dr. Teddy Herbosa, one of the proponents of the sin tax, admitted that he used to smoke and his father died of lung cancer. And this is a very, very sad thing, no? You're a doctor and your father died from lung cancer. So to all the fathers out there, it is really your advantage that you can influence your children. And Dr. Ted said that vaping has an undeniable harm from this causes undeniable harm from these electronic devices. And he said that it contains a cocktail of harmful chemicals which can cause chronic lung conditions. I suggest that you all go back to our taped version of this talk and listen again to all our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stella, for that very concise summary, and I agree with you. Let's watch this again. There's so much to learn from it. Okay, next week, we will have the Department of Radiology. They've got an exciting topic for us, which I won't tell you what it is yet because I don't know. But be with us next week and encourage all of your family members to watch this particular webinar. I think there is a lot we can learn from this. Okay, over to you, Raymond.
Thank you, Dr. Stella and Dr. Susie. Speaking of where to watch them, you can go to www.youtube.com/TVUPPH for you to be able to see all 145 episodes. After today, it will be 146 episodes of the Stop COVID Deaths webinar series. And together with that, we also have our very, very short and consumable videos called the SCD Shorts. So these are just 1 to 2 minutes or so videos also found in youtube.com/TVUPPH. We hope that you'll be able to gain nuggets of wisdom from this SCD short. So that concludes our webinar for today. Makita-kita po tayo again next week on the next Friday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. It's a date.
Together, we can stop COVID deaths.
So keep safe, keep healthy, and see you online.